so glad I made it through. And the struggle is already over. And those songs are pointing to, when that happens, there has to be freedom. There has to be freedom of something. There's got to be a release of something. There's something that is calling and beckoning us from within that allows us to be able to see that there is something greater than what we're struggling through. Something has had to have happened for us to be able to feel that. And that something goes back to, we have to be untethered. We cannot be attached to that which is keeping us small, or keeping us in one space without growth, without exchange, without allowing ourselves to see the greater mystery of this thing that's called just living. When we're talking about today's message, and when I chose the untethered word, it reminded me of the story that I had heard that goes back some time. But it has to do with one of the countries that uses elephants, and uses elephants as their labor, as a way of being able to get out of their circumstance. And so they take this baby elephant, because they got to train it to be what they want it to be. They take the baby elephant and they attach a rope or a chain to its foot. And then they take the other end of that tether and they put a stake in it and place it in the ground. Or in some way they put some kind of peg into the ground. Now there's only a few small distance that this little animal, cat I believe it's called, can move. Just a few feet away. Because every time it goes beyond that, it gets a pull. Until it knows it can't go there. Wherever it goes, it gets a pull, so it knows it can't go there. And by trial and error, it realizes where it can move. Now, there's an interesting thing about us: if we stay alive, we keep growing. And elephants are no different than the rest of us who are on this planet. And as that elephant continued to grow and quadruple its size and become maybe 10 feet tall, and maybe weigh so many tons, it still will not go beyond that space that has been outlined for us. The other thing we know about elephants is that it's got a memory. So it remembers where it can go. It stays tethered. If you were to take the peg or the stake out of the ground, it still would not go outside its space. Because it has felt as though and believed as though this is as far as it can go, without someone leading him out into a different space, but always bringing him back to the same. That's bondage. That's being tethered. And many of us in our own lives are tethered. There are things within our own lives that keep us in the same space because of different messages that we receive, different words that we've heard, and we just won't go outside that space that we're used to. Or we believe we can't step forward and become greater than what we think we are. So this morning and this month is an exercise to see, where's your freedom? What are you tethered to? And that we want to be untethered. We want to go to that space where we're no longer dependent on that which is on the outside telling us who we are. So the tethering activity is one of captivity. It keeps us captive to to the belief that we have in some way that just keeps coming back and reminding us of our limitations. No limit. I love that song. Because there are no limits, except those limits we impose upon ourselves. Freedom is our birthright. It has been given to us. It is something that we are born with. It's not something we have to earn. But of course we know there's a responsibility that comes with freedom. But when we're allowing ourselves to be still attached to those tethers, we every now and then get pulled back. And the thing that comes to my mind is this thought that all of us start out as young calves. And we're learning. And we're identifying who we are. And every time we want to possibly step outside, we get kind of pulled back. That helps us remember. We can't go out there yet. We can't be there yet. We can't have that yet. And so that tether keeps on this remembrance. And I'm making this all kind of come together. But when I'm thinking of freedoms, I'm thinking of our First Amendment, our rights. And so one of them, of course, is the right, freedom of religion. So I go back to religion and I'm thinking of being tethered. Now, keep with me with that analogy. It's really difficult for me to understand when we're coming into this kind of teaching, when we're feeling the freedom, for us to remain tethered to the idea that God plays favorites, that there are special religions that God pays attention to, that God doesn't allow us. It's hard for me to think that we are in a nation, a world, where there are unique differences, unique individualizations, yet we still fear each other because of our religion. We still stay in that space of thinking that something, someone out there is about to get us because they're not the same faith as ours. They don't believe the same as ours. Yet from the many we come to the one and we all have the same God. So that means that our understanding of who God is sometimes might seem a little off kilter. Because how can God be love and yet punish? How can God be love and yet face that there is a sin that has been committed? How can love and how can God be anything but unchanging? So the idea of the religion of my youth, and I'll bring it to mind when I go home to visit, is sometimes a little difficult. Because I do believe that there is that one presence that loves us all. And when I go home to the religion of my youth, I sometimes feel as though I'm an outsider.